If you don't, it's not a personnel issue. It's not a skill issue. It's not a messaging issue. Your business model is broken. You are underinvested in customer acquisition costs. That is a real line item expense in any scalable organization. And 20% is low for a lot of scaling companies. But if you're not spending at least 20%, you're broken, right?
So what's going on, man?
Dude, business is crazy, man. It's blowing up. Where I just hired 3 new people to kind of take some of the workload off, and it's been an adventure, man. It's gone better than I expected in a lot of ways. And we're actually launching a new company called Integrated AI Solutions, where we're building custom AI solutions and a multiply product where essentially we'll meet with CEOs and take 3 functions off of them and build full-time assistants that'll do the work in the background for them. So like we're doing fun stuff, man.
It's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. So I think it'd be cool if you could explain, integrated go-to-market solutions, how you started, how you got into this.
All right. So what is integrated go-to-market solutions? Okay, awesome. Well, first I'll just share this. I was in the mortgage industry and real estate space for 20 years, building companies, buying, selling. COVID was amazing. Rates went down. Everybody was super busy. At the end of that, rates went up and I had some choices to make. And I just started my 40s. And as a mortgage executive, you're kind of waiting around for things to get better when rates go up. There's just more people in the business than there are loans, and you're really trying just not to lose money. And so that was the time for me to kind of reassess what I wanted to do with my career. 20 years in the mortgage space felt like enough. And I took 6 months off. And then in that time, I started helping my friends and family grow their businesses. One thing I had realized as soon as I got out of the mortgage industry is that what makes the mortgage industry kind of unique is that there are 2,000 mortgage companies across the country, and all of them are selling the exact same product at the exact same rate, meaning that it is a sales and marketing knife fight every single day. Not that much different than what you do. But when I got into these other industries like SaaS and fintech and people who had manufacturing products, there was real product differentiation. And so the marketing and sales skills were like much weaker, and people had a hard time positioning themselves. I'd go to their website and I couldn't even tell what they did or who they did it for. I'd ask their team like, hey, who do you guys serve? And I get 8 different answers from 8 different people. And I was like, I think I'm really onto something here. And the companies I started helping were immediately finding alignment and getting very different results. So in June of this year, I said, hey, I'm going to do this full time. My first client we took on, they were a legacy business, 25 years in IT services. The founder had retired and they hadn't signed a new client in 2 years. They were really struggling. They'd hired head of sales, head of marketing. They weren't generating any business. It was like crazy. And within 120 days of working with us, we'd helped them sign 11 new clients. I was like, okay, I think we have something here. And so in September, we productized it to a 4-month go-to-market transformation product that we do, which essentially is a fractional chief revenue officer coming into your business and realigning what we've trademarked as the core 4, your messaging and product market fit, lead generation strategy, sales execution, and your fintech, your CRM, and all the things that attach it together. We come in, we redo those things over 4 months, and that's what we do for our clients. And so far, the results have been amazing. And really, I think the biggest thing that we're doing for clients that we didn't even think about is coming in and assessing their current teams, really seeing what's working and not working, and being able to give that direct feedback to the CEO. And at the end of that 4-month engagement, we're finding as those CEOs now understand go-to-market strategy at a different level, and they're able to lead their organizations in a different way moving forward.
So out of that core 4 that you described, is there something that you guys address first? Like, what do you think has the biggest effect on revenue?
Well, those are 2 different questions. So the thing we have to address first, that is the backbone of everything we do, is really assessing product market fit, looking at, hey, where did your last 3 clients come from? What's working and not working? What is your differentiation in your product or service? And how easy is it? How well are you communicating that to the world? And we interview their current C-suite, we interview some core employees, we interview their current customers. Usually we go out and interview a couple of competitors. We then kind of really put all that together, and we put together kind of what our theory of the case is for the messaging and ideal customer profile that we think is going to move the needle. Once we built that, the rest of it is kind of easy. So from there, again, I don't want to go into too technical terms. We look at customer acquisition costs versus lifetime value of a client, and we decide what is the best lead generation strategy for this company, for this product or service based on those answers. We make sure the math works, and then we go out and get those leads. Now that is to your answer your question, the thing that moves the needle more than anything else is generating leads, right? And so whether you're using LinkedIn outreach, cold email, meta ads, Google ads, flyers, direct mail, we have different strategies for all of our business to business clients. But once you generate messaging that works, you have a lead capture funnel when someone visits that website that actually results in someone actually we get that information. And we're able to deliver that on a consistent basis. That's what changes the game. And then, we look at sales execution. Yes, sales is important, but if you have alignment in an organization in terms of what you do and who you do it for, you message it well, you target those customers efficiently and in a cost-effective way, and you get them to raise their hand and say they're interested, very rarely is sales going to be the thing in the way, right? You can be a very average salesperson in that environment and still succeed. But we do upgrade sales teams and make sure the rev tech is working correctly. But the thing that moves the needle is always lead generation.
What's the biggest mistake that you see businesses or your clients making?
They refuse to say who they're not for, and so no one who can tell what they are for. So if I go to their website and they have 4 different product lines and 8 different versions of their service, and they won't say what industries they focus on because they're so afraid that somebody in another industry might not fill out a form because it doesn't say their industry specifically. If people can't tell who you're for, who you're not for, they can't tell if it's for them. And the most important thing I tell people about a website, and we have really cool tools now that measure all sorts of things about a company's public go-to-market presence, their digital presence, not just their website, but across the board. But what we see is you have 3 seconds when someone visits your website to get them to realize, are you for them or not? And if they don't feel like you're specifically for them, meaning specifically you solve a problem that they have and companies and people like them, they're going to leave and move on to something else. You have to capture that imagination in those first 3 seconds. And then you need to kind of have your next 30 seconds of their time on the website, really walking them through what your differentiation is and why they should care. And if you get those things right, everything else changes. But I'll tell you, what we do extends in ways I didn't even imagine. When we work with fintech companies or SaaS companies, you'll find that once we nail that front end alignment where everybody knows in the company what we do and who we do it for, suddenly the engineering team has different clarity on what features they should be adding to their products or what part of the market they should focus on. You have no idea how many organizations I go into where the product team is literally developing new features based on whatever the last person the sales team talked to said they wanted. That is not a good way to get to put a product roadmap together, right? And so when organizations are sales led, meaning that we know what the majority of our customers are looking for, and we know exactly who those customers are and who we want to attract, who's going to be profitable for us, what's all those different things, then everyone else in the organization can get more focused and deliver better results. And so the biggest mistake, to answer your question, is a lack of clarity on what you do and who you do it for.
They have no personas, customer personas.
That's it. And by the way, it's always the CEO's fault. Or the founder. It's always the leader of the organization. It is up to them. So many of these guys punt on it. It's like, well, I hired this sales leader. If go-to-market strategy is not being driven from the very top of the organization, everything else in the organization suffers. All of the best organizations have revenue-focused leaders. Yes, you can also be product-focused, but there's a reason Elon Musk is on all these podcasts, right? And it's not because that helps him with his engineering team, although it might help him attract top talent. But it is because distribution of your messaging is still the most important thing for these companies. And founders must be focused on that, and they must upskill themselves in 2026 to know how the world has changed, what the biggest tools are out there, and they need to be leading their organizations through this changing period. And if they don't, they're gonna get left behind.
Yeah. So as you guys start to work with people, what do they most misunderstand about what you do?
Well, I think one of the hardest things for, especially for smaller companies and founders to wrap their head around is, I guess, why we cost what we cost. They'll start to break it down like hourly in terms of these different things. And, I explain, there are certain things you do in an organization that are 2x, and there are certain things that have 10x potential. So what I mean by that is, and it's not to make anybody mad at me, but I'm sure somebody will be mad at me. If you have an operations person and they push files through, the best one in the world versus the average one might be a 2 or 3x difference. The difference between the best marketing and sales people in the world and an average one is 10x, 20x, 30x. And so when we talk about what people are paying for, they're paying for the results that we can deliver to their organization and the 20 years of pain and mistakes and millions of dollars in mistakes I've made along the way that have helped me get to this place. That's what you're paying for. It's not some hourly input and output, right? And I also say that if you're going to hire somebody for sales and marketing and they're not expensive, there's a really good chance they suck. Because if you're really good at sales and marketing, you should be able to get a lot of clients and you should be able to charge a premium price for it, right? So I always say if you're getting a discount on your sales and marketing person, there's a reason. And so that's one of the things I think hardest to understand. The other thing I think that is hard for them to understand sometimes is, um, you know, we do have real deliverables that we deliver through our process, but the intangible part of it, which is the things like talent evaluation, like we have a client that we recently took on. They put us through a whole long process of deciding before they decided to go forward with us. And I understood where they were coming from. They wanted to be smart with their money. And we put together a 4-month execution roadmap and plan. And on the second meeting, I realized that the problem was a personnel issue in 2 departments, and all of the other stuff that we had built was kind of irrelevant. Like, they actually had done a pretty good job on all the things that we said we were going to fix. What we really needed was a new person here and a new person here. And so what we did for them completely shifted. It became they had these job descriptions they wanted to post, and I laughed. I was like, you're going to attract losers with these job descriptions. Like, no cool person who is going to generate results is going to want to work for you with this job description. They're like, what do you mean? So I rewrote them, and all of a sudden now we had these like amazing applicants flooding in. It sounds like a small thing, but it's not. You have to be able to attract real leaders who are going to have authority in your organization. And by the way, same thing in a job posting. If you don't say what you don't tolerate or what you don't want, the people you do want will not be attracted to you, right? If you're looking for someone to tell you what to do, if you're looking for a job where you can punch in and punch out, this isn't for you. If you're looking to be a leader and drive strategy and drive growth and be responsible for results, this is for you, right? You have to be able to say those things in a job description. So we went out, and then now if we replace these 2 key people, suddenly all the stuff you've done before gets done, right? And what's even crazier is when I pushed on this, both of the people in those roles actually kind of admitted they were half checked out. But so they knew it, right? And they almost were like waiting for it to come. But if you're the CEO and you've been loyal to those people for 8 years, 9 years, it's hard to see those things, hard to have those conversations. And so when you bring somebody in from the outside, and my allegiance is to making a difference, right? And so I get in there, and it's very easy for me to see. I get to see all these companies. I have so much access to different companies in different ways. The problems jump out immediately. And so I guess one of the hardest things to explain is like, yes, it's a little bit like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Once I get in there, we're going to figure out what's broken and fix it. And I'll shift this plan, but we're going to deliver results either way. And yes, maybe it follows the plan, but oftentimes it doesn't. But at the end of it, you're going to be thrilled, and we're going to be able to show you right to your bottom line and to your pipeline how we've made a difference.
So is there a niche as far as like gross revenue, as far as like who you guys work with, company size?
Yeah, I'll say this, we've tried like real startups where there's like no product market fit that's really there already. And we can do it. I think we're really good at it, but it is actually a much harder thing for us to do. And so what we've kind of said is that if we take that on now, we charge 3 times as much for it. And I know it's crazy because these companies don't even have revenue yet and they probably can't afford it, but finding baseline product market fit, generating some revenue, you can really chase your tail for a long time, especially if you're trying to create a new category or you think you have something new. It's like there's usually a reason why this thing doesn't exist. Now, that's not always the case. You might be able to hit a home run, but I always say, pioneers usually end up dead, but settlers get fat. Sometimes it's much easier to find an industry where there's already product market fit and try to outcompete than there is to try to reinvent the wheel. And then also, once I think companies are above 50 million in revenue, they should have somebody like me in their organization full time. You need a chief revenue officer. It's time to invest the money. And yes, we can come in and help you lay the framework, or maybe help you hire somebody, but you need somebody who's going to give you a different level of commitment. So for us, it's normally companies that are between, let's call it 3 to 5 million and 50 million in annual revenue, that are feeling stuck or feeling they don't have a predictable revenue generation machine. And then we come in and we act as that chief revenue officer for that 4-month period, redesign whatever is necessary inside those core 4 and sometimes outside of those core 4 to make sure that when we leave them, they're in a much better place and they know exactly how to measure what's working and not working.
Yeah. So we work like in our business, we have internal and external distribution, and we try and get agencies on the external side to see where they're the bottleneck, right? Like you start a business, you start as the only employee, you're doing most of the deals and trying to get them to say, hey, now's the time to add a team member. So like, what are things you look for when it's time to add a team member? What position are you adding first?
So I know this is this maybe it may not apply to every situation, but it does apply. I think it's the thing that applies to the most situations because I think it's really depends on sometimes like if you want like who should they hire first? A lot of it depends on their time, their skill sets. But I would say the last thing you want to give up as a founder is revenue generation because it is much easier to find people to support revenue generation than it is to find really great people who do lead revenue generation. And those people are not inexpensive, right? So like usually that's something you want to hold on to the longest. Like right now we're scaling our organization so I can spend more and more of my time on the sales process and less of my time in the client execution process because I just don't think there's any substitute for my ability to get on a call as the founder, as the person who built it and make that person feel comfortable giving us their money, right? But I also look at all of this as when you're building out your scale to your business, what percentage of revenue is going towards customer acquisition cost? What percentage is going towards fulfillment? And what percentage is your estimated or target for profit? And I think when I met with a company yesterday and they were doing, $2 million a year in revenue. And I'm like, this should be you must be crushing it. And they're like, we don't even have $1,000 right now to invest in marketing. And I was like, whoa. And they have the coolest thing they built that I could sell all day. Like I was looking at this, I was like, and this person was amazing at building the thing and didn't know the first thing about marketing and sales, had hired a bunch of different agencies or marketing employees that had all failed, all fallen flat. Like she's like at her wit's end. She almost thought that marketing was like a magic trick when I started talking to her. She's like, everyone had just like scammed her almost on all of it. But the real problem is that in order for her to build her amazing thing that she built, she'd hired really great people, paid them really well, was obsessed with making sure everyone was happy. And she was started to run an employment center as opposed to a business because none of her revenue was going towards customer acquisition costs. All of it was going towards fulfillment, which led her, she didn't have any money to invest in marketing and sales because that was over. And I said, listen, you have two choices and you have between now and June to figure it out. Either you're going to grow your top line by 20% so that you can invest 20% in customer acquisition costs, or you have to cut 20% of your expenses in June so that you can invest 20% of your revenue in customer acquisition costs. Because if you don't, it's not a personnel issue, it's not a skill issue, it's not a messaging issue. Your business model is broken. You are underinvested in customer acquisition costs. That is a real line item expense in any scalable organization. And 20% is low for a lot of scaling companies. But if you're not spending at least 20%, you're broken, right? So when you think about how you're going to scale your business as a founder and you're trying to get to that next level, it's like, okay, cool. As we get to, if I do $1 million a year, $2 million a year, $5 million a year, what part of my budget is fulfillment? What part of my budget is customer acquisition costs? What part of my budget is profit, right? And you need to kind of set where you're going with that from the beginning. And that can inform your decisions then about who to hire, when to hire, where to scale. And I think that's been a formula for me, even as we grow our business. I'm shooting for 50% profit margins. That's my goal, right? I'm thinking 20 to 25% customer acquisition cost, 25 to 30% fulfillment costs. And so who I hire, how I hire, what I pay them, what I expect their jobs to be, all of it is built around that. And those things will change as we scale. People will be able to get more specialized. You'll be able to go down market. But I also think in the age of AI, business owners need to start thinking about this. Fewer better people paid above market for exceptional work. Because when you have a really great person, they can be 3 times or 4 times as effective or efficient as they were 2 years ago if they're using AI for their business. I know that's certainly been the case for me. It would have taken 3 of me to do the work I'm doing right now, even 2 years ago, based on what we're doing with AI. So in the past where you might have been like, hey, I just need that assistant overseas for $10 an hour, maybe not anymore. Like maybe the answer is invest in somebody who's higher quality, makes you a little bit uncomfortable with what you're spending. But if they're good, they can now get 2 or 3 times the amount of work done you would have expected 2 years ago. I think the most successful companies will be the ones that think that way as we go forward.
Yeah, in theory, we have one person that could code, but in reality, we have 4 people that can code because the rest of us can use Claude or we can use even ChatGPT. And so, like,
or
we can
that
build
one person
things.
can write 4 times as much code now.
Yeah. We can build things where you would have needed a team of developers in the past. So it's definitely awesome. Like you don't need the same amount of employees, like your RPE goes, for the revenue that you generate. So
Yeah, it's never been
and
a better time to be a small and medium-sized business because it's going to be so much easier for them to pivot than it is for these large organizations that have right now teams of people figuring out how they're going to implement AI. And what that really means is that nothing's ever going to get done. So if
yeah,
you are a small or medium-sized business and you're not taking advantage of this moment where you have the strategic advantage, you're going to pay for it down the road because eventually these big companies are going to figure it out. And then they're going to drive, that's where you're going to really see the deflation come into the market. So right now is your moment to be able to keep charging the same things you're charging right now. And anything you save becomes profit because in the future, you're going to have to be able to lower prices just to be competitive.
yep, yep. So you guys talk about the two founder types in your business. So if you want to explain those and like which one do you think is harder to fix?
Um, I don't know that I have a harder to fix, but we have two founder types where really you have, let's call it just the salesperson that's so good at sales, they grow a company. Let's just call it that for right now for easy kind of thought process. And then our product monks, which are people who are obsessed with building this cool thing. They built this really great service. Like the person I talked to yesterday, like, I mean, the most brilliant operations person you'll ever talk to. She built this amazing system that can scale any organization on the ops side. It has all this beautiful automation, but she doesn't know the first thing about sales or marketing. And so she's really struggling to both get premium pricing for her premium model and to get distribution on that premium model. I looked at it and I was like, man, I wish I was looking for a job to come be your head of sales tomorrow. Like we could explode this thing. It's so cool. And so I think for me as a salesperson, I'd rather find a product monk, right? Because if I find somebody, at least if they have a growth mindset and they aren't overprotective of what they've built in a way that makes them impossible to work with, like if you've built something awesome and you're obsessed with it, we can come in and support you and build the sales and marketing machine behind it to tell the world about what you're doing. And when we find salespeople who, what I'll just share, I would say it's easier sometimes to be a really great salesperson and get your business to X and then have none of the, what I'm going to call soft skills that are required to be a real leader, to be a delegator, to be somebody who can attract top talented people and create an environment where motivated people can thrive. Like a lot of times the best salespeople are actually like lone wolf tyrants who can generate revenue and find 5 people who can tolerate them enough to keep the machine going. And then it's not really scalable. Right. And so that's like an almost impossible thing to fix because usually there's like real deep personality things there that are part of the problem. And even if that person says they're willing to change, that could be, you're talking about a personal evolution, not like a choice to just go to the gym every morning like that. You have to become a different version of yourself to make that transition.
For those people that are willing to do it though, like what's the mindset shift that has to happen?
Well, the first thing is a real acceptance of that what got you here will not get you there. And then the second thing is, how do you become the kind of person that other really talented people who are very different than you want to spend their lives with? And really that means having empathy, being deeply interested in other people and what's going on with them, being really curious about what makes people tick and also being willing to let things get done at 80 or 90% is good for a period of time while somebody else figures out how to get things done, right? So I have a client right now who is this person, and luckily he has a partner who built out the operation side of the business. But this one sales guy who is the sales engine of the company, he's a co-founder. They did 48 million in revenue last year, 7 million EBITDA. Every time he's hired a sales guy, the guy lasted 3 or 6 months and he's like, this salesperson sucks. We got to let them go. And the truth is, those salespeople probably don't suck. It's that they don't sell the way you sell. You're a unicorn because you meet this guy for 5 seconds. He's good looking and charming and tall and sense of humor and like it just and naturally just like so aggressive without making people feel uncomfortable. Like he's everything you'd want in a natural born salesperson. And by the way, those people are not scalable and they're also not hireable because if those other people out there have their own companies or built their own things and they're certainly not looking to come work for you. You have to be able to take what you've done and systemize it in a way where we have marketing and sales that support an above average salesperson, and it allows them an environment to succeed. So they literally hired me to literally sit down and go, here's what we're doing. How do we build the systems around this so somebody else can do it? And that's literally what my engagement with that company is. And for them, it's a no brainer, right? Because they just know that at some point he's going to break or whatever, or by the way, or they're going to go sell the company and they're not going to be able to, because no one is ever going to buy that company if the only person generating
Without 'em.
revenue is going to leave when they do. Right.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we do for our clients.
Yeah, the empathy thing is something I struggled with. It took me years to realize that. And until I had an employee say to me, hey, I realize you just don't care about us like the other employees. And I was like, wow, that kind of hit me. And I was like, wow. So it made me think about it. And so I kind of changed my perspective on like being engaged with them and like, the personal stuff. Like I never thought it was important or never cared about it, but it's everything. The stuff in your personal life affects your work. It's a balance, right? And then I think when people believe that you care about them, they change what they do for you.
Well, it's an essential part of most people desperately want to feel like they're a part of something. I am a
Yeah.
team in every part of me. I am a team player. I played team sports, all the different things. I will, if you put me on a rugby field and, we both played rugby, like I will literally have a heart attack on that field before I let my teammates down. When I'm playing tennis one-on-one by myself in the neighborhood, I'm not driven the same way. Like my effort level changes based on people depending on me and my relationship with those people. And so not everyone is wired that way. And you're a very independent person. I've known you a long time, right? You were super self-motivated and you would do things that 99% of salespeople wouldn't do because it made them uncomfortable. It made them anxious. And you were like, no, I don't care. I'm going to go get mine. And that's what made you so successful. I watched it happen. It's really hard to be that person then and attract other people to want to get on that machine with you, right? Because you're the kind of guy
Yeah.
who's doing the things that make other people uncomfortable. And you're the kind of guy who's aggressive in a way other people aren't. So all things that make you successful now become a liability. And that's a really hard thing to wrap your head around because you have these big goals. You want to become this person, right? So there were some amazing books that were transformational for me around this. And luckily, I'll say I was always at least internally more empathetic than some other people who had to go through that transition from sales to leader. Really, I always had this fantasy of being the coach in sports. I don't know why. So like that, or even the teacher in a classroom. So that thing drove me to work on those skills a little bit earlier. But it was watching, in other environments, how people struggle with this and the cost of it. You ever watch the show Mad Men? Did you ever watch that?
No.
So it's an amazing show. But Don Draper, who's the main character, like is the perfect example of this. He is the revenue generation for this entire ad agency. He's brilliant. It's the reason why all the people want to work with them and all this other stuff. And he's having this conversation with his employee, Peggy. And it's like a famous scene. And she's like, you don't even care about us or some version of that. And he goes, well, that's what the money is for. It's like, I'm paying you, and it does. But it literally ruins his whole life. That person, you watch his entire life unravel because of that transactional nature of how he sees all of his relationships. And there are times where you're still rooting for him, but it's like, at the beginning of the show, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I promise it's worth it. At the beginning of the show, he has this wife and like they have this problem relationship and you kind of blame her. And then they get divorced and he meets a new woman and that woman is like the perfect woman. They make her like fictional levels of perfect and he still screws it up and does the same thing. Right. And that's where you like see the exposure of like, man, if you're not interested in what's important to the people around you, right, then eventually you end up alone. That's like the moral of the story. And so as you're going on this founder journey, it's like, wow, you better find a way to be genuinely interested in the people around you and what's going on with them. But it doesn't mean you have to be overly empathetic or make excuses for people or not hold people accountable. I still have incredibly high standards. It's like, don't come work here unless you want to be responsible. The cost of being on this team and me caring about you is you delivering results, right? Because that's my obligation to the rest of the team is to protect this environment. But while you're here, I'm all in. Bring your whole self to work. I want to know all the stuff, right? Like, and that's an important part of being a good teammate in sports and at work and everywhere else.
Yeah, that shift to helping people develop personally, professionally, financially is I think made a huge difference in our business the last couple of years, right? Because it just wasn't there before. So how should people think about this go-to-market strategy different than traditional marketing or sales?
Well, I don't know that they need to think about it that differently, and I'll just share it this way. Most of what we do seems pretty obvious to me. What
Yeah.
I think the unlock is for the founders I work with is that, well, there's two types. I have a couple of clients who know most of what I know, probably could do a lot of what I do, but because of where they want to spend their time, the stage they are in their career, where their organization is, they need somebody else to lead it. They need somebody else to lead it through the rest of the organization and build those muscles out. They can't get to it, or they don't enjoy it, or whatever else it is. It's actually like a small, about 25% of my clients. For the rest, they haven't been exposed to it. It's not that interesting for them. They don't really understand it. Or the learning curve for them would be too high without having a coach to walk them through it. But at the end of the day, it actually is this simple. Solve problems for people who can afford your solution. Find a way to tell those people about it in a way that resonates with them, and then make it easy for them to say yes. And like, whether that's 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 100 years from now, that is still the formula we're playing with here. It's slightly different based on your product or your service. But if you are not solving problems, or you're solving them for people who can't afford to have them solved, or you're solving them for not enough people, then you're not going to make money, right? And McDonald's makes a ton of money selling a $7 hamburger because they sell 1 billion of them a day, right? And there are just as many companies out there that need 10 clients to make $100 million a year, right? And so there's scales to all of this and strategies for all, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Do we solve a problem? Do we solve it for a group of people that can afford it? And are there enough of those people, or can we attract enough of those people for us to make a significant amount of money? And if you figure those things out, you're going to have a really good business.
Yeah. How do companies prepare for these different revenue breakpoints as they scale? Like, you hit a certain revenue number, like whether it's 20 million or 25 million, you have to make sure that you have core leadership team built out, or you have to make sure that you have automated systems. Like at what points do you see businesses break when they don't have those things in place?
So I think unit economics play a big factor in this. So it's hard for me to be like, it's these specific points. But what I'll say is that when I come into an organization, or even in my own companies as I've scaled them, the moments are actually very obvious. One, if you're willing to open your eyes to it, which is, we've hit a point, we're going to need to change. And so the first thing I tell people is, your business is going to have to change, and you're going to have to change for your business to continue to grow. Like accept those things. Second thing is, when you get to an inflection point, you realize you don't have what you need, that is to be celebrated, right? Like, we're uncomfortable now. We have a bunch of business coming in, and our ops team is stressed out. They can't handle fulfillment. Cool. This is the cycle where we're going to go fix fulfillment in our business. We have great fulfillment right now, but we're not growing in revenue. Great. This is the part of my cycle where I get to go focus on doing this. And if you think of it as like, oh my God, there's always something that's broken, dude, you're not cut out for this, right? Like, yes, of course, when you're going through growth, you're going to have pain. And the only way you're going to get through that pain is to address it head on. So for me, once there's like a point in my business where I'm like, I know what's broken, that's very exciting, right? It's like, cool, I can get to go fix that thing. And so I always tell founders like, hey, like, cool, you've hit a ceiling. Congratulations, right? You got to that next spot. Let's address this. And by the way, if we get this right, a year from now, you're going to call me again, and we're going to have a new thing to break through, right? Like that's, if it's all going well, right? And so, I would say is listen to your customers, listen to your team, and realize that if you're not growing, something's wrong, right? Like, and by the way, if you're not growing, you're shrinking, number one. I know people are like, we're about the same. It's like, no, you're shrinking because the economy's growing, you're falling behind, your customers are catching up. Like if you're not growing, you're losing, and think that way. And if you're not growing, something is wrong. And if you don't know what's wrong, cool, call me, we'll figure it out. It's going to be very obvious once you have somebody from the outside coming in to see it, and whether it's me or somebody else. But the idea that like, no, everything's really good. Like, but it's just, we got to get through this period. Like the world's going to change, something's going to change. Like probably not, right? Like there are seasonal industries. Like, yes, if you're not growing as a mortgage company right now, maybe nothing's wrong, right? Like it's just, that's a weird spot to be in, right? Rates are high. There's more people doing mortgages and more companies doing mortgages than there are mortgages to be done. But unless you're in like that sort of a vice of an industry where it's like that sort of like seasonality or era periods, you should be growing, right? And by the way, I'll also argue with you, unless you're married to the mortgage industry, get out. Right? Like fighting that tide and being in a spot where everyone is struggling to survive when there's other spots you can transfer to tomorrow. Like, that's why I got out. I was like, it was very clear to me, like, I'm going to spend a decade treading water, or I got to go build something else. And so, seeing the team that sees reality at the end of the day wins. Right. And so
it seems like that opportunity is overly tied to obviously interest rates. and what
That's
the
it.
Fed wants to do.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not a hard thing to hop back into. If rates went down again tomorrow
Yeah.
and I decided I wanted to hop back over there, like, it's not like I forgot how to scale a mortgage company. I don't see that ever happening. I don't want to go back. I love what I'm doing now. In a way, it's so much more interesting to me than that ever was, to be honest with you. But my point is, sometimes people are afraid to make a change. They think it's a life sentence. When I moved to South Carolina, everyone's like, "You're so brave." I'm like, I don't know. I can always move back. Like, it didn't feel that brave to me. It felt like it felt silly to me to not try. You know what I mean? Like at that
Yeah.
point, right? It was like, let's try something new. So I always say to people, like, you can't be afraid. There's like a loss fallacy with all of this, right? It's like, if you got fired tomorrow, you figure it out, right? Everybody does, right? So like, what is the cost of you not being willing to try something new?
Yeah. Right. Most people just look at what am I going to lose or what's the cost of me losing this thing instead of the upside. The thing, I looked at your guys' stuff before the call. The thing that jumps out to me with your marketing is, hey, like we have a plan and then we're going to fix you and then move on. Whereas most people are trying to constantly resell you on whatever the next thing is, which that thing kind of drives me crazy. But that kind of brings me to the next question. Like, what does a fully graduated client look like?
It's funny. So first of all, I did that mostly for my own sanity, because what was happening to me when I
Yeah.
first started doing this is I kept turning down clients because I was like, I don't know that I really believe in this leader. I don't know that I really believe in this product in the long term. And I don't want to get married to them. And the business model for a fractional chief revenue officer is find 3 or 4 clients willing to pay you 10 or 15 grand a month and like keep yourself valuable enough that they'd never notice you're not doing anything. Like, that was like literally the business model. I was like, I'm not that person. I don't like that. None of that sounds fun to me. And then I was also realizing that like I move fast. And what happened is, in my first 3 months of an engagement, we'd make all this progress. And then I'd be like waiting around for the organization to catch up to all the stuff we just built. So I was like, why don't I just do this for 3 or 4 months and then move on, and we can always circle back. So that was the plan. And so far, it's been great. We've productized it. It's working awesome. Um, what does a fully graduated client look like? It's a client that at the end of it goes, okay, my problem has shifted from I need new business and pipeline to I'm worried about us being able to handle this new business and pipeline, right? Like where now the attention in the organization is ready to move from focus of revenue generation. We have leads coming in. We have a sales team that can close them. I can see what the pipeline is. I believe I'm going to have new leads coming in next week. Everything is being done at a customer acquisition cost where the math adds up and makes sense. We've achieved scale for the moment, at least, in our sales and marketing. And now it's like, cool, now I got to go hire fulfillment. I got to fix fulfillment. I got to fix my accounting team. I got to fix this thing or that thing, or now we can go develop a new product, or now I can invest in something else. Right. So that's what it means to be graduated, which is, okay, when the founder wakes up at the end of our 4 months, the biggest problem is no longer where is my next deal going to come from? It's something else. And I think we've been able to achieve that for really every single person that we've put through our program.
Do you have like a favorite client experience or story of somebody that you helped?
I have a few, but I will say that the first client that took a chance was taking just as much a chance on me as I was on them. And it was 25-year-old business. Founder had retired 2 years earlier, and they hadn't sold anything for 2 years. And during our engagement, they got 11 new deals over the 120 days, and I worked so hard on that because I was like, these people entrusted me, and they didn't have the money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like they had to find it to do it. It was a big investment for them. They took a big chance. And that person is still a rep. Whenever a new client's like, can I talk to somebody you worked with before? That guy says to me, he goes, I will get on every reference call you ever need forever. He's like, anything you need, man. Like I'm here for you, right? Because we changed their lives, right? Like, I mean, that they were worried about closing the company, and now suddenly the problem has shifted to how are we going to handle these new clients? It's an amazing experience to go through. But I'll also just share this. I have a client that I'm working with right now. Very, very smart CEO, ruthlessly focused on like building an 80-year-old company, a family business, and very impressive person. And she was very cynical about working with me, right? And then we've had a couple of emails I've gotten just this week from her where it was like, oh my God, this is amazing, or oh my God, like I can't, thank you so much for this. And like, when you get to see somebody go from like cynical, like everyone's been burned so much. Like, if you're a business owner, 80% of the things that you invest in just do not work. And you start to question your sanity. Everything comes with a guarantee or a promise or this or that. And then knowing that someone, when you get that feeling of knowing someone took a chance on you, and then that moment goes off where it's like, oh my God, I'm getting more than I paid for. Those are all my favorite client stories. And so it's that moment where you're like, oh, they're happy, like they're gonna recommend you to somebody else. Like that's the moment where you feel it, but it's different for everybody.
Yeah, it's a cool thing to be able to change somebody's life and make money at the same
It's
time. That's
so cool.
awesome. That's all anybody could ever ask for.
And I'm so deeply interested in just how all these businesses work. So being able to get in there in a front row seat, I get to see the financials, I get to see the revenue team, what's working, what's not working. You're like, wow, like the access is so fascinating. And I love when we bring on a new client, we get to dive in. And then at the end of it, when we get to make a difference, I, I, I'm really lucky. I got to that 6 months off allowed me to say, like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And how do I make sure I can make enough money that it feels like a really good decision. And to find something like this that matches just what I love doing, I've just never been more grateful or happier to be doing what I'm doing.
That's awesome. How many businesses do you see without succession plans, like these family businesses? I mean, it's crazy this wealth transfer that's about to happen.
It's beyond crazy. And what I'll also say is we have this social media has created this environment where everybody thinks they're qualified to buy businesses too.
Mm.
And so we have like I know a guy who built this company around the idea that they're going to match buyers and sellers of companies, right? And it's a pretty cool idea. They have like 9 buyers sign up for every one seller, even though the buyers have to pay for access and the sellers are getting their services for free. And so what's even weird is that like these companies that should have already sold or being prepared to sell, like they're just like not worried about it. Like people just like they don't even see it as their responsibility to come up with a plan, right? It's like, listen, this is my business and it's mine. And it'll be mine till I die, and I'm going to keep working. Like I don't know. So there's really a disconnect there, and I don't know where the educational shift is going to come, where it's like where you're or where the emotional shift is going to come, where people go, the best thing I can do for my business is actually when I'm 65 or 60, whatever, is find a way to keep it going for the people that work there, the people that are my customers, whatever it is, without it all being dependent on me and finding that plan. But it does not seem that for 80% of people, at least, that's like, unless they built the business with the idea they were someday going to sell it, I see very few people ever get there on their own.
Yeah. And they could sell it for a premium if they don't need to or want to or have to as well. So yeah, it's just interesting. You hear about this stuff all the time. And like, as I start doing this, even when I got into sales, I'm like, the first appointment I went on, I was like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. But then as I meet all these other people and all these other business owners, I feel better about myself because I'm like, well, nobody really knows what they're doing. So it's just crazy how much opportunities out there and room for growth that everybody has. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just they took the initiative, to want to try.
Yes, I've been fortunate of this year to join a number of what are like exclusive pay to enter founders groups, and I promise you, the people making $10 million a year and $20 million a year are not in the ways that people are insecure about, not better than you.
Yeah.
What they
Yes.
are people of real action and
Yeah.
people who think in terms of big numbers that don't make them uncomfortable. It's like natural for them to think of things in big numbers. They are people of action, and they don't worry about how much pain they're going to feel to get to where they want to go. That's not a factor for them. Most of them, it's just like, listen, this is where I want to go. I'm going to go do these things, and that's it. And so it's the boldness of being willing to fail. It's the boldness of being willing to try new things. It's the boldness of being willing to change their plan if they get new information and see something else is not working. But it's not, if you want to be that person and and you think it's a skill issue that's holding you back, I promise you it's not.
Yeah.
I see lots of people who are devoid of most skills succeeding wildly if they have some of these other traits.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people pain and struggle is the great equalizer. No matter if it's like in a endurance race or if it's in business, because you strip everything else away. You strip talent, like you looks, whatever it is, you strip all that stuff away, and then you're just left with will at the very end.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say is, I think there's this idea that you can't find something you love doing and make money doing it. not everything that you love is something you can make money doing. If your video games are your favorite thing, maybe that's not the right path for you. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, right? But I will say that there's probably something that you can take interest in the world that you can find a way to scale and make money doing. And that's not to say that it won't be hard. It'll be just as hard, but it'll be enjoyable enough where you're willing to put in all the hours that it takes to finally get good at it. Right. And that's really what it comes down to. And so, just start. If you're out there and doing this thing, like just take a bet on yourself and start. And by the way, know it's going to be 6 months at least of loneliness and trying to figure it out. And the hardest part for us, like when you launch this, you don't know if anyone's ever going to say yes. You know what I mean? Like it's a lonely
Yeah.
start, but you have to have that conviction of if somebody can figure it out, I can figure it out. I'm not going to quit. If you burn the boats and
Yeah.
just go, you'll probably figure it out.
Yep. Yep. Thanks for doing this, Mark. You're the man. Thanks for joining me. This was fun.
Yeah, I had a great time. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you letting me on here and sharing your audience with me.
Yeah, you got it, man. It's always good to catch up.